Of the Ad Podcast. And we are actually live in person today. The Go-to-Market Alliance is here in town for the San Diego stop. So how's the event been so far?
So far, so good.
Nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's good to be down here in sunny California.
Yeah.
I'm usually in the mountains. So yeah, no, so
I
far.
love it. Well, thanks for coming. So today's guest is Devon O'Rourke, who is the CEO and founder of Fluvio, which is, I think you branded it as kind of a modern day McKinsey for SaaS.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
kind of go-to-market companies in and around the product marketing space. Is that
correct? Yep, that's correct. Work with all sorts of technology companies, helping them essentially tackle their most challenging go-to-market problems.
Awesome. So for some of my audience, we're kind of more of a general market marketing and advertising podcast. So can you enlighten the audience a little bit of what is go-to-market? Like, what does that acronym stand for, and why should us as marketers be paying attention to that?
Yeah, it's actually, it's an interesting question. It's something that keeps coming up at this event. Go-to-market, I think, is just encompassing multiple departments these days. So product marketing is probably the discipline that sits most squarely in this go-to-market position, but customer success, sales, growth marketing, to some extent product, all the teams that are sitting at the table and are trying to drive companies forward.
So it's kind of the cross-functional.
Correct. Yeah. And you're actually starting to see some titles change.
Mm-hmm.
Like historically, product strategy or product marketing roles are now being changed to go-to-market strategy. So we'll see if it's a trend that just continues to kind of pick up.
Yeah. I saw a lot of, when I was researching the speakers that were presenting at this conference, a lot of them were hybrid titles like Chief Revenue Officer plus go-to-market, or VP or CMO, the go-to-market kind of adjacency or something.
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. So and that's new. That's, I would say, in the last like 5 or so years.
So how long have you been a part of the Go-to-Market Alliance, and what is that organization here trying to accomplish this week before we go into the holiday in San Diego?
Yeah, so the Go-to-Market Alliance is a new, event / community It's underneath a broader portfolio, which is the Alliance. We work with the Alliance. We've worked very closely with them. Their first sort of brand was the Product Marketing Alliance. That's one in which we partnered with early on here at Fluvio. They have a community via Slack and obviously events. They do sort of like mentorship. They actually do quite a bit of things, which is interesting. They're based in London, but they have a pretty big contingency in the US. And the Go-to-Market Alliance is meant to get leaders across their portfolio. So whether it's sales enablement, sales, product marketing, it's leadership within those communities getting together and having discussions to gain alignment across the board.
Nice. And what kind of companies would you say are here today? Like who are some of the big blue chip names that we would know about?
Let's see, like Clary is here, Salesforce, a couple folks from Salesforce, I think Dropbox. Nice. I would say enterprise tech companies.
Enterprise tech is kind of the focus.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, let's take a step back and talk a little bit about your background. So in my research, you've had a pretty wide array of experience before you decided to become a founder and start your own gig. So you were instrumental in bringing Amazon's ad products to the market. You were also instrumental in launching, I believe, one of the video DSPs. I might be forgetting off the top of my head. Tremor. Okay, nice. Yeah. So I go back to the early video seeding days. I was an original sales guy at Channel Factory, and we were kind of in that world. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the highlights in your resume that kind of led you to this decision to start your own shop, and just give us a little bit of color of your history and what brought you up to this point?
Yeah, I'll actually start earlier. Interestingly, I started in photography.
Wow.
So I left college thinking I'm going to be a photojournalist. I worked at the New York Times as an assistant. I worked at Getty Images, like internships. I thought I was going to be in this world of photography. And then I found a role at ESPN as a photo editor for the magazine. And the magazine's this big magazine. It's meant for photography. And I also am a golfer, we were just chatting about. So I was pretty stoked about that. But about a year in, I sort of saw the writing on the wall in regards to publications like that. And it just worried me a bit. I was the youngest one in the magazine, and I saw people taking photos with their iPhone. And I'm like, I don't know if this is the right business. And so I just tried to pivot my career. And I found myself at a media agency who just accepted me. Had no experience. And
that was Publicis, I think.
He's Publicis, yeah. Big agency. I was working on Walmart, doing like media planning and buying, media strategy, but the reality is they were driving strategy and we were the middlemen. And I learned a lot about the agency business and didn't necessarily love it, and was able to move over into sort of the vendor side, which is Tremor Video, which sold software to media planners and buyers, helping them buy video ads, and really just fell in love with product marketing, sort of accelerated my career there and moved into a leadership position at a fairly young age. And then from there, I went to Etsy and was the lead product marketer on Etsy's app, so consumer product marketing. So I got some consumer experience in there. And then moved to Amazon. And like you said, in the early days of Amazon's ad business, which today is just booming, at the time it was pretty nascent. And just, grew into several different roles there before thinking about starting my own thing. And the idea is pretty simple. Product marketing as a discipline has really become an integral function within most tech companies. And yet there aren't that many folks that have been doing it. It's really challenging to stand up internally. It's expensive, it's messy, and it felt ripe for a consulting service business. And I guess I was confident enough to think I could be the person that would do that. And and that was a month before the pandemic, and I set out to start on my own.
Nice. Was the pandemic a boost to your business? I know a lot of people have had varying experience of kind of the COVID bump. I know in our space, in the influencer marketing world, all of the budgets that were traditionally going to experiential and in real life marketing quickly moved over to digital. So we had a lot of acceleration during the pandemic. Did you have a similar trend in what you were doing?
I think yes, ultimately yes. When it first occurred, I was physically going into my first client's office, working with the CMO, and he sort of met me in the elevator on month one and was like, "Did you get the email?" I said, "No, I'm a consultant. I'm not on like the internal emails." He's like, "Well, this is the last time." It was in the Freedom Tower at One World Trade. And he said, the whole building shut down because of this virus. And at that point, that was my first client. I had a 6-month agreement. I think ignorance is bliss in this case, because I just thought, I have a 6-month agreement and they can't cut it. Yeah. I've since learned you can easily cut contracts.
That's of God,
right? Yeah. Luckily, he did not cut the contract, and we stayed with him. And then budgets were in flux, and for about a month or so, and then explosive growth. Product marketing became even more valuable for these tech companies. Their stocks were going through the roof. They had money to spend, and then also you were able to pull people in remote and distributed. This more flexible nature of working played to our advantage as well. So over the course of the first 2 years, we grew pretty quickly.
I love that. So I noticed that you were also involved in an organization called the Hampton. It seemed pretty interesting. I think you mentioned it a little bit on one of your podcast episodes, kind of a community of like-minded founders and product managers. Can you talk a little bit about what that organization is and what it does for you?
Yes. So there is a huge podcast with Sam Parr, who's the founder of Hampton. And I heard about this community through that podcast. The podcast is my first million. And I just started listening to it and liked learning on it. And then he mentioned he started this community meant for founders who often struggle with problems that they can't really talk to people about. You have to not share everything necessarily with employees. You have to put on a certain face, and it's hard unless you have a really vast network. It's hard to get answers to some of these questions. So it sort of rung true when I heard about the offering, and I joined pretty early on. And essentially what it does is it pairs you with a core group of, I think it's 8 founders who operate similar businesses, maybe different sizes, some nuances, but enough overlap where you can get value learning together. And then they have a sort of a monitor who's really like a coach, and you meet monthly. And you go through personal challenges, you go through business challenges, you bring up your biggest problems, and then you almost have this round table discussion on a monthly basis. That's the core of the community. So it's sort of like you build these micro groups. And then there's also a Slack community, much like the Alliance has, whose events here, which is hugely helpful. And I think that a lot of companies are beginning to leverage Slack as this means of creating community. But yeah, I've learned a lot from that group. I've learned about companies to invest in. We have a venture arm, like a nascent venture arm at Fluvio. So those opportunities have come across the table. learning about, different accounting firms and practices to implement to be more successful. So things like that.
Yeah, it reminds me of like a EO or YPO or Vistage or one of those kind of groups, but maybe a little bit more specialized.
A little bit more specialized, and I think they're intentionally trying to roll it out very slowly. They want it to feel, they don't want to misstep with bringing on too many people that maybe don't align with their values. So you have to go through this interview process. You have to have a certain amount in revenue. You have to be a founder. But more importantly, you have to be a good person and share the same values that the community is trying to instill.
Kind of a little bit more pre-vetted.
I think I felt that way, and I think that is what they're going for.
That's their intentionality. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I want to pivot a little bit to B2B influencers, because that's something that our agency is really excited about. We've been the agency doing influencer marketing for companies like Adobe, and that just kind of led us down the B2B path, where a lot of influencer agencies are running towards consumer, where you're like, wait a minute, B2B is usually late to the party, but when they get there, it's pretty exciting. I feel like with some innovations that are happening on the LinkedIn side, such as being able to promote advertisements from personal profiles versus just company pages now, I feel like LinkedIn is kind of at the precipice of really being a creator-centric platform. You have an interesting background as a photographer and as a creator running your own podcast as well. Can you maybe give me your comments or thoughts on LinkedIn and kind of B2B as an influencer marketing strategy, or what you see? Are we at the beginning, or do you think are we just on the other end of influencer marketing and B2B being a really important channel?
I think you're 100% right. We've also done some work with LinkedIn.
Wow,
so I will say I know a little bit about what they're going for in regards to B2B specifically. We did some product marketing strategy work with them. Yes, they're definitely trying to go after creators. They're building tools, trying to help people become creators and defining what a LinkedIn creator is. So we've worked with LinkedIn. I know that that's what's going on. And then on my side, I'm seeing it. So I think there's this ability now to become this micro influencer within niche areas of B2B. So in the product marketing field that I operate in, I'm seeing a bunch of leaders who were in-house VPs at really large, noteworthy companies leave their positions to start a coaching career. And I know 3 that have done this in the last 3 months. And I actually had 2 of them on my podcast before they even made the move.
No way.
And we'll see if it's going to be successful for them. I do think it makes sense. And I think LinkedIn for sure is going to be the platform that allows them to do that. I hope that LinkedIn really leans into that and helps them figure out how to monetize it. A lot of these folks are kind of building their own coaching business and using platforms like Kajabi or even on their own website and driving newsletters and all that sort of stuff. But definitely a trend to keep an eye out for.
Nice. So you have a podcast. I have a podcast. How impactful, you're 20 episodes in so far?
21, 22.
21 or 22. I think I counted 20 live. And we had a little bit of discussion before the show that's one of the reasons I do my podcast live, so I don't have to worry about editing. It just is what it is. How impactful has that podcast been for you as a leader, as a way to network with other people, but also expose the value of that conversations? I mean, I listened to 3 episodes today and I got a lot of value out of it. Even being someone that isn't directly in the product marketing space. You interviewed a coach, you interviewed somebody from Kajabi who's building community, and those are, I think, relevant inside and outside of the industry. How valuable has launching a podcast been for your own personal brand and for your company?
Hard to measure. I think certainly it's early days. I think that there is a lot of value there. It'll be difficult for us to tangibly measure it, but I will say we're definitely getting signals that it is successful and that it's penetrated the right audience. So for us, we're trying to, become a louder voice in our niche market, which is product marketing strategy work for tech companies. So we're targeting a somewhat small group, but I think we're already making way in penetrating that group. For example, we just stood up an outbound motion to try to drive, prospects to Fluvio. Historically, we've just gotten all of our work inbound, word of mouth, and SEO. If you search product marketing consulting, we come up number 1. We sort of created this subcategory. But over time, as we want to grow, we need to install this outbound motion. And now over the last month, we've had a number of people respond saying, oh, I actually really love Devon's podcast, Embracing Erosion. And whether it's good or bad, I take these meetings and I think that they want to get on the podcast. But at least it shows that we're targeting these people and they're saying, we've already heard about you. We listen to your podcast. We find it insightful.
So you're kind of warming the beachhead, so to speak.
Yeah.
For future business development.
That's the play. Like, it's just, making sure that we're around in a voice, trusted voice. And then frankly, I just enjoy it. I want to speak to interesting people. The intention is to expose people to the network that I now have running this consulting company, having to deal with really difficult but interesting problems with really sophisticated, smart people. I want to bring those people on the show and explain sort of their mentality and allow others to learn from them.
Yeah, I love that. So you mentioned you guys have a VC and an angel advisory division of Fluvio. I think one of your portfolio companies is actually here as well, Ignition.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what those guys do and why you decided to come on board as an investor?
Yeah, so we're a small investor with Ignition, and I'm an advisor. Their CEO founders here. Actually, both their co-founders are here, and I'm friends with them. So they have built essentially a go-to-market operating system. Mm-hmm. So, most of the B2B SaaS tools that are created are geared toward product management or engineering or pure play like marketing. What they're building is a platform that product marketers and product strategists can use to plan product launches, distribute information internally. It's supposed to be the hub for all product marketers to operate in. Now, I obviously understand that space pretty intimately. I also see that it's growing exponentially, hence why, I have a services business in that space. And I see Ignition as sort of the software element to.
So it's kind of a SaaS plus services that you're probably not going to get there with a complete SaaS offering just yet, but it helps organizations like yours potentially facilitate that roadmap.
Right. And I, want our team to use that tool, for example, expose it to companies. So the intention with Fluvio Ventures, which is our ventures arm, it's small, and we're launching a syndicate on AngelList. So, if you're an accredited investor and you want to get access to really interesting tech companies that I vetted, that my team has vetted, you can sign up and you can become a part of our syndicate and invest on a deal by deal basis. And I want to invest in companies that fit the sort of themes and the trends that I believe in and I'm seeing. Nice. So a new one that we're actually currently raising for is with a company that does voice messaging. So think WhatsApp. A lot of people will send voice messages that you can respond to whenever. This company is building that for enterprise, so that instead of email or instead of Slack, you can record a message, you can send it to your participant, you can eliminate a meeting and it transcribes it and you can respond at your own leisure. So those are the sort of opportunities we look for.
That's awesome. And are these investments that you're looking for as like an active investor where you guys would come in and not just place equity or funding, but also come in and have strategic participation where you guys are maybe running the marketing or helping with the growth strategy as well?
I think the intention is absolutely we can help with the strategy and the go-to-market strategy. That is the value that we bring to the table as a micro VC. You'll get a lot of pitches from different venture firms or angels that offer various things, but we're the leading product marketing consulting company. And so if you're particularly a B2B SaaS business, we are going to be able to invest and then, help you in your growth strategy.
I love it. All right. Well, we're coming down to the final line. I know you've got a lunch to get to. What has you most excited about the future of Fluvio?
Oh man, tough question. I think what we're doing now is we're really building out a number of products and services that are aimed at the same thing, which is helping companies tackle their most difficult go-to-market challenges. And we started with deep consulting work. So you mentioned McKinsey, sort of read up on how McKinsey started. We're trying to build a more modern McKinsey. That is the core of our business. But what excites me now is we're beginning to build out services that help companies regardless of their age, like where they are in their life cycle. So Fluvio Ventures is a good example. It's these seed stage companies that are just kind of getting started. We can help them now with investing and helping them early days. We now have a workshop product to help early stage companies get their founders and exec teams aligned on their company positioning and messaging. And now we also have a go-to-market assessment tool, which is more of a programmatic means of helping really large companies measure the effectiveness of their product marketing and go-to-market teams. So I think what's exciting is we just kind of laid the groundwork, and deep consulting is sort of the breadwinner, but we have a huge opportunity to help more companies across the board. And then personally, I think that's super exciting because I get to meet with and work with some of the smartest people across a huge spectrum of companies.
It doesn't put you in one box with one certain kind of help people wherever they are on this roadmap, whether
Exactly.
it's just the beginning where they need funding or very far down the path.
Yep, exactly.
I love it. Well, hey, man, really appreciate you being willing to do this interview on a flyer. So Thank you for coming on the show. And for everybody watching at home, please subscribe wherever you're watching this podcast, and or be ready to normally tune in with us on Mondays at 1 p.m. West Coast. And if you like this interview, share it with a friend. See you later.